I'm Farhad Daftary, co-director of the Institute of Ismaili Studies. I've been affiliated with the Institute since 1988, for almost 32 years now. And since 1994, I have also headed the Institute's Department of Academic Research and Publication, which is basically responsible for conducting research in the field of Islamic studies with special reference to Ismaili and broader Shi'i studies. Now, I have been involved in this field for the past half a century, and in that context I've managed to do really two things which have made my research in a sense original, and I've then been able to fill some gaps in our knowledge of the Ismaili history and traditions. One was to recover or to discover new sources, especially in a large number of regional histories of Iran and other countries where one can find brief but highly important references to the Ismaili community at various times and in various localities. And secondly, is to have been able to come up with new interpretations of the known sources, the sources which had already been known to other scholars. And it was really on the basis of these two elements that I embarked on my own research in the field. We had now enough material and enough sources and information to be able to produce a connected history of these key central figures of Ismaili history, notably the Imams and their biographies, brief biographies that would really sort of situate the biography of each Imam within the period during which he lived and the main sort of events of their imamats. And to make this book even more accessible, we thought it would be useful to include a series of images. And they vary from manuscripts to miniatures, coins, castles, artifacts, and they really provide a cultural and physical context for the lives of the Imams who are discussed in this volume, and makes the book more accessible, also sheds light on the cultural and architectural and art contributions of the various Imams. This book really be found helpful by various constituencies and readerships. First and foremost, I would say it would be found useful as a work of reference for the Ismaili community, for the Ismailis themselves. Now here in one volume they have, as I have mentioned, the connected history of their Imams, of the 49 Imams, from Imam Ali down to the present Imam, His Highness the Aga Khan IV. And this book is also of use as a work of reference to scholars and students who are interested in studying the history of the Ismailis and the leadership of the community. This book sheds light really more specifically on the leaders of the community within the context of the history of the community. And one would not be complete without the other. The biographical history of the Imams, in fact, serves to complement the history of the community, because it was the Imams who at all times, whether they were manifest or concealed, provided that crucial leadership for their community of followers. Because I know many members of the community, especially the younger ones, they do recite the names of all these 49 Imams very frequently, every day, without knowing too much about the biographies of many of these Imams. And this book will serve as a book of reference, as a source for them to fill the gaps in their knowledge in terms of the biographies and the events that took place during the lifetime of each of these 49 Imams. It tells the story of the Imams for each one in his own time, with due attention to the circumstances of his time, the conditions, the challenges, and it really serves to emphasize the lived experience of the community at various times, and how, by looking at the history of this community in the past, or at times of very specific Imams in the past, how that knowledge or that experience will help to serve as a basis for having an enhanced understanding of what is going on today and the leadership of the last two Imams over the last 135 years. Of course, as you know, every research has its own challenges. In the case of the field of Ismaili studies, the outstanding challenge always is lack of required sources, which means for many of the Imams and many of the periods, we do not have a sufficient number of reliable sources. So one has to really, in a sense, become engaged in what I would call detective work, piecing together bits and pieces of information culled from various sources, which means the researcher must cast his net very widely, and then very selectively choose the snippets which are relevant to his research. It's like weaving a carpet. Piece by piece, you weave it together until you have the full picture. And this is really what happened in this case. I had done much of this research already in connection with writing this book. This, of course, is the second edition of that. But I still had some gaps to fill, and for those gaps, I had to look at the more recent sources, the sources which more recently have come to light. And on that basis, the combination of what I had already gathered for this book and what I also managed to add to my previous research, I managed to be able to write this book on the biographies of the Imams.
Uluk igen